All right, today, if you've already had some experience with oxygen settling, that's great. I just want to review everything, but we're going to go into detail, and you have to be able to explain this. Now, if you had BCT 106, explain it to us so that we understand that you remember the steps on this. The only difference between what you're doing in 104 and 106 is 106 was brazing. You're now oxyacetylene cutting. All right, so it's just a little bit different with the tip. The process of setting it up, lighting it, shutting it down is basically all the same. So let's go back over this. The first thing you want to do is unwind your cable so that you're comfortable. Okay, just set that off to the side. Now you'll be doing this outside. All right, we're going to move outside to cut. All cutting has to be done outside. There is no options here. We have our oxygen and we have our settling bottles. All right, these are the first two that you're going to come into contact with. Now remember, if the gauges are not on, which in this case they will be on, but you'll, for training purposes, say that they're not. You get new bottles with caps. The first thing you need to do is remove the caps, the shipping caps, and set them off to the side. The next thing that you want to do is you're going to step to one side of the bottle, the opposite side that the valve is on, and crack it. Just crack it and close it as quickly as you can. That gets any foreign matter out of there. You do that both in the oxygen and in the settling. Now remember, take notes because you're going to need to know this step by step. We're not going to let you work on this stuff until you do. So now you clean off the outside and be sure there's nothing in there. You've done it to the acetylene already. Now you pick up your gauges. That's why these gauges you have to treat with care. All right. Otherwise, the springs inside get all whacked out of place. You don't get real readings, and you could have problems and leaks. Now the oxygen is right-handed. The acetylene is left-handed, and you can tell this by the little slot, all right, in the metal. Also, typically, all right, the acetylene only goes to 15, all right, and the oxygen much higher than that. So now you've put these on finger tight. Now there is a wrench in here, but if you have to do this, all right, I would prefer that you'd use one of the black wrenches, all right, crescent wrenches, all right, because these have a tendency of getting worn out real easy, but you notice that they're black oxide. They don't make a spark. So only use a crescent wrench or a crescent wrench that is black oxide. Now typically you will not have to do this, all right? But there'll be times when I'll get new bottles in and I'll tell you, okay, you gotta change out the bottle. But be aware of that. And never, never, never trust whatever somebody else did to this. Always check it. Now, on the acetylene, it has left-handed threads. So when you start to turn it, you got to go left-handed, otherwise it won't go in, and you'll see that. All right. Plus, the oxygen has a female adapter, while the acetylene has a male adapter. Then you get your two hoses and you hook them up, red to acetylene, green to oxygen. You come over here, you hook up your red to acetylene, green to oxygen. Now sometimes it may not say, it may say F, it may say oxygen, it may say fuel, all the same, all right? Hook that up. Now this has the flash suppressors in it so that you don't have any backfire. Now, once you've done that, everything is the same as you did in 106, but now what's going to change is we're going to take the head off of this because this is a welding tip. And remember, these welding tips come in different sizes, and they never put on with a wrench. Then go into the box back here behind the tanks. Check the threads. Be sure that the threads are clean. All right, nothing's wrong with it. Now this is the cutting torch head. That's why it's different. We're going to slip this on and gently screw it into place. Now you notice I'm only using my fingers, no tools. Now you'll ask yourself, okay, what is all this? Well, this knob right here is for your oxygen. Once you turn on your fuel, the fuel is going to go all the way out. Okay? So once you turn this knob on, you're going to have ignition at the other end if you're not careful. The oxygen, on the other hand, stops right here. So you really have to open up two oxygens, but there's a process to that. Then you're going to have the heat producing oxygen here, or excuse me, the acetylene here, and when you push this down, it will operate the oxygen to flow through there, and that's knocking out all the molten steel. All right? So now once we have our tips all together, everything's ready to go. You notice how I'm always holding the handle, all right? The torch head's up here, the handle's down here. I'm always holding on to it. I'm not doing this, all right? I don't want to catch anybody doing that. All right, so now I come back and I open up my oxygen first. And how I open that is, I want to be sure that my relief valve back here, my pressure springs, are released. And just get them to where they're comfortably loose, not falling out. Once that's secured, then crack the bottle. You're going to see the needle move on the right here. Now when that stops, you need to open up this bottle all the way. Now remember, you're going to be writing this up step by step as I explained it to you, so that you can come out here and work with it. There is no room for error here. We have that at about, I guess, about 6,000, 5,000. Okay? We're good to go. Now, what we want to do is be sure all our valves are closed. And when you close these valves, it's a very light touch. All right? You don't have to put any pressure on these things, because the more you keep putting pressure on them, the more they're going to get damaged. Now, this is operating my working gauge. This was my tank pressure gauge. This is my working gauge. So now I want to run this up to about 20, 25, somewhere in that category of oxygen. All right, now that's different than brazing. All right, this is cutting. So now we have that set. Now we can come back to our acetylene and do the same thing. Check our working gauge pressure knob. Be sure it's loose. Crack the tank. All right, now once that needle hits, then open it up one full turn. All right. Now apply the working pressure. And for purposes in the classroom, we'll keep it around 6 to 8. All right. Now remember, you're reading the red. All right. Now we're ready to light it. Now, we're going to go outside to light this so that there's no danger of anything happening in here. So now we're outside. You're going to be in a designated area. All right. This is not the designated area for cutting. All right. You'll be put off into another metal table that also has a vise on it as well. If it doesn't have a vise, just use a black C-clamp to hold your metal. The metal is going to be in a trash can next to you. It's all scrap metal. All we're trying to do is get you to understand how to use it, not to become an expert in this thing. All right? But you must understand that safety is the top priority here. All right? Especially the students that may be in here during the summer months or when there's dry material around, please pay attention to what's around you. All right? Now, safety equipment, your gloves. These gloves have to be used. Don't bother with your little work gloves. All right? Puts out too much heat, not going to be sufficient. Our shield, all right? Be sure that it's clean, serviceable, adjusted properly to your head. This is soapstone, all right? And this is like using a pencil, all right? But it marks on metal pretty easy, all right? It's just a guide, gives you a little area to work with, and it doesn't melt off or burn off when you're trying to run down the metal. You'll pull out some metal pieces. Now, they're not all going to be cut like this. It's all scrap stuff. So don't be worried about ruining any of it. All you have to do is be sure that you take it from one barrel. When you're done, put it in another barrel, all right? And pick up all the scrap pieces around your table. All right, so now we got our gauges set. We're going to adjust our helmet. Now, it's going to be awkward, but learn how to work with it. All right. Now, what we're first going to do is show you how to light this thing. Remember I told you, once you open up the gas is going to flow out here. So, remember that. Open up your fuel, about a quarter of a turn. Get your striker and light it. Now, notice how the tip is still intact, but I have this soot blowing out here. Well, we don't want the soot. We first have to get rid of the soot. That's what you want right there. All right? No soot, hot flame, roasting marshmallows here. Now, remember I also told you that this oxygen is only part way. You got to have it up here also. So you first open up this all the way. Then you're going to open up this valve slowly. Until you get a flame looking like that. Now, remember I told you that this is the oxygen handle to blow out any debris. All right? You see what it's doing? It's overriding the acetylene and throwing out all the steel. All right? Now, to shut this down, the first thing you do is turn off the fuel. Then your oxygen from the top. And if you're going to continue using it, you don't need to shut off this one. All right? And as you are, at the end of the day, you'll shut this off. All right? Or if you leave the workstation. Now, knowing what I just showed you, you're ready to drain it. All right? So if you're going to drain it, the first thing you want to do is shut your gas off. All right? Close this off. All right? Now you can, for all intents and purposes, take your gloves off so it's easier, but just be sure that, you know, safety is the utmost. Okay? Then go to your oxygen tank and close this off. One thing you don't want to do is be in a rush. When you start rushing things, accidents happen. Now, pay attention to this, because if you screw this up, then you're going to have residual gas and oxygen left in your tanks. Go to your fuel and open it up. You notice the gauges. When you open up that valve, the gauges drop. When those gauges drop, you can then close that valve, and you're still working with this gauge. You back off the pressure regulator. All right. Go to your oxygen. Now remember, this oxygen was never closed, so you can go right up here and drain those tanks. All right. Again, close it. Now we're finished for the day. So you should have both of these valves closed. Then, taking your valve stem, pull it back so it releases the pressure off the diaphragm. Now, before we start cutting anything, you need to do this 3 times completely. You need to be sure that there's an instructor or staff personnel on hand to watch you go through this whole process. Once you've been cleared for this, then you will go on to the next phase of it.